My name's Andrew. I'm the Communications and Education Manager at Money 101, and it's a pleasure to be joined today by Jessica Yun, who's the Workplace Correspondent and Finance News Producer at Yahoo Finance. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Andrew. It's lovely to be here.
So the topic of today's session is financial stress and how it can cost employees lost productivity. Jessica, can I just start by asking you, as a reporter on workplaces and finance, what's sort of your sense of how people are feeling at the moment? Is there a lot of financial stress out there in the business world?
Yeah, now, look, when I was doing my research for this festival, I really thought that this conversation couldn't have come at a better time. And that's because across at least 2 surveys that I've looked at, there are indicators showing that the levels of financial stress are actually on the rise. And more people are experiencing financial stress than just making ends meet. Now, the survey from NAB went through a couple of reasons, but I'll just highlight 3 here. Now, the first one is that COVID has actually left a scar on the employment market, understandably so. And so people are feeling quite insecure in their jobs and their employment. The second reason is that a lot of the economic support that we did see throughout COVID, for example, stimulus payments, you had your rent moratoriums, you had repayment holidays that caught the repayment holidays that were keeping people afloat. That's all gone now. And so that means that people are struggling to pay their bills again, and that concerns about debt are back on the rise. The third reason is that Australians are struggling to increase their savings. So as a result, you'll see financial stress rising, of course. And to pull back a little bit and talk about the bigger picture, I think it's important to point out also that this is all happening at a time where, if you guys have been following the news, Australian property prices are skyrocketing, right? But wage growth absolutely is not. So what you're seeing is that even though the economy is sort of coming out of the recession in leaps and bounds, and that unemployment is decreasing, 1 in 4 Australians are actually still struggling with financial stress. So it's quite a mixed picture here. And we also saw that a lot of the richest people in the world and in Australia got even richer throughout the recession, and some of the poorest got, even poorer. So not only are the rich getting richer, but you get less bang for your buck as well. So short answer is yes, there is more financial stress at the moment.
So clearly that financial stress is obviously out there in the community, but what impact would you say it's having on businesses?
Yeah, so, for all of you who tuned into Rachel's session just then, she went through all of the stats and stuff like that about how, financial stress is going to lower productivity. And I think that's the most important thing to emphasize here. I think workplaces have been really, really good at talking about mental health, about focusing on physical health as well. But I feel like as a nation, we're still not really that comfortable talking about our finances. And that's something that, I know that a lot of business managers and business leaders are listening in today, and a lot of HR specialists as well. And so, they might not realize that financially stressed employees actually lose about a month of productive work days a year and are 2 times more likely to look for other jobs. So there are real bottom line implications for financial stress. And it's a huge economic burden as well, $31 million a year and 2.5 extra sick days. So, it's common sense, right? Like if you've got stressed workers, if they're stressed about their finances, of course, they're not going to give their all to their work. Like they're distracted. The quality of their work is slipping. They're thinking about their budget. Like they're coming to work late. They're not coming to work at all. Their relationships with other co-workers might also suffer. So like I was saying before about the NAB survey that I was speaking about, the top 2 stresses named in that survey about what was stressing people out about their finances was saving for retirement and providing for the family. Now, the top 3rd stressor is actually categorized as non-essentials, but these might be the things that make life most enjoyable, right? Like I don't have to buy that coffee when I'm catching up with my girlfriends, but, I want to, and it's important for my happiness and my mental health. So, it goes to show that, not having your finances in order can really affect your quality of life. And it's in the employer's interest to help deal with that as well.
Absolutely. Well, when I think about stress in the workplace amongst employees, sort of bring it back to basics. So when you think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that diagram we're all familiar with, the triangle, you start with, the basic physiological needs at the bottom. So food, water, shelter, safety and security, up to the deeper psychological needs as you rise up. Basically, if someone's not being paid, obviously, a living wage to allow them to actually meet their essential needs first and foremost, that's going to cause a lot of incredible stress, no doubt. There's actually an example I was thinking about the other day about this from coming out of the United States. So there's a CEO by the name of Dan Price who runs a credit card business. Some people may be familiar with this person. It's called Gravity Payments. And basically, he tells a story whereby one day at work, he noticed one of his employees seemed to be in a bad mood and approached them and asked, what was wrong. And the employee actually told him the truth, which was essentially that he felt that Price was ripping him off and not paying him enough money to live an actual decent life. And so as a CEO, he's taken this on board, and on reflection, you realize that this is actually the case, that the employee had a point, and that the pay structure that was currently in place was actually detrimental to his staff's well-being. Obviously, this is quite an extreme example, but it's sort of illustrative of the point that of that leadership that can be there in companies if they think about financial well-being. So what he did was he brought in the minimum wage of the company, which was $70,000, and actually cut his own salary, which was close to $1 million at the time, I think, to fund it. And along with being, a feel-good PR story, according to him, the productivity has actually increased dramatically of that business. I think it just goes to show that, one of the ways that obviously you can reward your employees is by paying them first and foremost a decent wage and being able to meet those basic living expenses before anything else. Jessica, have you seen any good examples in your reporting of businesses that are helping their employees to overcome financial stress?
Yeah, look, I want to go back to what you were saying just now about paying workers a livable wage. I'm going to go into all the bells and whistles and the extras and stuff like that companies can offer. But I think it really starts with that, right? Like all the extra stuff is going to look a little bit redundant and even tokenistic, come across as tokenistic if as a company, you're not, paying your workers right. And, like I was saying before, right, you don't just want your workers to be skating by. You want them to be comfortable. You want them to be able to sort of have a coffee on the weekend and go out and enjoy their time with their loved ones without needing to stress about their finances, right? So I think that this is the very first step for businesses, is just to check in and figure out, are you paying, where are you paying compared to the rest of the industry? So it's just check to see if you're paying competitively. So that's step one. In terms of examples that I've seen of companies, helping employees overcome financial stress. So this year, PwC in the US did a survey of 1,600 workers on financial wellness. And what this did was to sort of take the temperature of how their workers were feeling about their finances. And, obviously this is off the back of COVID. So you see that 2/3 of workers said financial stress had actually risen for them since the pandemic. Sure, that makes sense. But, 2/3 is 2 and 3, right? That's most people in the workforce. Now, nearly half of these people, so that's 45%, said that finances were a distraction at work. So it goes to show, like every other person in the office could be, distracted from their work day to day, and they can't focus because of what's going on in the background. Now, another 72% said that they would be attracted to working for another company if it meant that that company would care more about their financial well-being. So I think that this has huge implications for employers because, when it comes to employee retention, when it comes to quality, how are you going to, keep up with your competitors if your workers, can't get their head straight at work? Some of the key takeaways from that is that PwC, made the best of online tools and platforms to help their workers with certain financial issues, whether that's paying bills or student loan debts and stuff like that. And what else the other thing that they also realized is that personalized benefits would go a long way with helping their employees. And this has to go beyond just, flexibility to work from home, right? The survey did show that businesses have to rethink incentives and compensation packages for each employee. Now, in saying that, more money isn't necessarily that easy fix, right? Again, going back to Rachel's great presentation just prior, we can see that so much of this is about behaviors, about, just creating that awareness of how much money is coming in versus how much am I spending, right? So it's about money management, it's about budgeting. And on top of that as well, because I know that I'm speaking to an audience of employers and business leaders, so much of this is also about removing the barriers around talking about this. Like if you think about how comfortable you are speaking to your partner and your best friend or your sister about your finances, let alone your colleague or your boss about your finances, right? Like you need to make sure that, employers are going to have to make sure that workers feel comfortable accepting any help that you might want to offer. So you can't expect this to happen on its own either. Research has shown that it's really driven from the top.
Absolutely. I think another thing that's sort of key to alleviating that stress, as you were saying, is that financial literacy. Because we know people build money habits from an early age, and that can include bad habits as well. So people pick up stuff from their parents, whether it's using pocket money to save something they want, was getting that value of a work ethic from experiencing their first part-time job, their influences at school. But for many people, there may be a bit of a gap in their knowledge when it comes to personal finance, not something we, as you say, necessarily feel comfortable talking about all the time. Do you think that's an area where businesses can sort of step into the breach and help there?
Yeah, 100%. That's why we're here sort of talking about that, right? This is definitely a place where businesses can help plug that gap. How many days have you come to work and sort of been like, well, actually work is a bit of a relief from the day-to-day that's going on at home, or maybe you've just had a fight with a friend or your partner or something like that. So, it would be fantastic if employers could make the workplace a safe space for people to not have to separate life from work and sort of say, okay, well, I can actually get a helping hand from my workplace about what's going on at home. And then it just becomes this virtual cycle, right? Now, here in Yahoo Finance, we're sort of all about, we see what's going on in the economy, and we see that Australians are really struggling with their finances. And that's why we've set up things like the women's money movement. And it's because that old stereotypes out there that men are better than women at finances and men handle the money and stuff like that. All of that, in a certain way, yes, it's changing, but it is still in place as well. In a certain way, there's been a lot of good progress, but that takes time as well. According to government statistics from March 2020, just 45% of adults were considered financially literate, and 63% of that were men and 48% women. So one good thing to come out of this is that, come out of the COVID crisis, is that Australians are actually more engaged with their money more than ever. As a report, I see, daily evidence of that. And it comes through in the stories that people are interested in. So just to shed a little bit of light on that, people want to know how to save money, how to make money. If you do a quick Google, you'll see that the stats for all the new retail investors coming into the market, being interested in the share market for the first time, that's really boomed ever since COVID. And it's really made people sit up and take notes. So in terms of what business leaders can do, pick up on the signs. Are your workers distracted? Are they absent? Has their work declined? And what support programs do you already have in place that you can offer? Is it the case that the help is there, but workers don't know about it? Or do you get someone external and, bring them in and have a chat